The film begins in 2018. Wrapped in the French flag, Issa met with his friends and went to the center of Paris to watch the World Cup final live. The huge crowd of fans was incredibly happy when their national team won. Police officer Stefan had recently moved to the capital to be closer to his son. He would patrol the streets under the guidance of the experienced cop Chris. The rookie was shown the local ghetto. When the old junkies died out, Islamists began to impose order there. Chris was an unpleasant type. He constantly teased Stefan. Issa was a frequent visitor to the police station. That night, he stole a crate of live chickens from a gypsy. Everyone called Chris a pig, and he was proud of his nickname. The police captain told the rookie that Chris worked tough, but sometimes it was necessary. In any case, Stefan always had to stand by his fellow officers. Little Buzz entertained himself by using a drone to peek into girls' windows. When his father came home from work, he sent him to the store. Muslims asked the black kids to respect their elders, especially parents, and not to mess around. The men lured the boys into the mosque with soda and cookies, and after the treats, they would talk to them about Allah. Buzz climbed onto the roof of an abandoned house and continued flying over Paris. During his first patrol, Chris decided to scare the rookie by advising him to wear gloves during a search. Otherwise, he might catch an infection, cholera, or typhus. The cops met a man who had been thrown in jail 4 years ago and forced him to rap. The boys were bored and fooling around. Issa told his friends how, in his village, he once saw a man burned alive for stealing a moped. The guys wanted to grab a bite, but 12 euros was hardly enough for anything. Chris spotted a group of young girls and decided to harass them. He chose a 15-year-old schoolgirl and started searching her. The girl was allegedly smoking, and her friend began to film this on her phone. Chris got angry and smashed her phone. Buzz was found by the girl he had been spying on, and she decided to check what he had recorded. The girls demanded that he forward them compromising material on one of the girls and delete all the other footage. This ghetto was run by a local authority figure nicknamed the Mayor. His men could be recognized by their orange vests. The mayor wore a t-shirt with the word mayor printed on it. Right then, he was keeping order at the market while also collecting tribute from the vendors. The mayor noticed Chris. Even the gangsters laughed at the new cop. Suddenly, shouts and curses rang out across the street. A van was driving around the city filled with furious gypsy circus performers, swearing into a loudspeaker. 6 armed brutes got out of the vehicle. Their leader told the mayor that someone had kidnapped his Johnny. The locals had no idea who Johnny was. A fight almost broke out. When the police arrived to break up the crowd, Chris finally found out that a lion cub had been stolen from the circus that night. A witness claimed that it was taken by some dark-skinned kid. The gypsies once again started attacking the mayor's men, threatening that he had 24 hours to find the lion cub, otherwise they would return with a shotgun. After that, they got back into their van and drove away. To prevent a massacre, the lion cub had to be found. The gypsies were real psychos. Chris suggested starting the search on Instagram. Kids are dumb. They immediately want to show off on social media. Chris gave the rookie a task to talk to the ex-con Salah, who knew everyone around here. The place was filled with Muslims. Stefan described the situation with the lion cub to Salah. The man did not think that a lion belonged in a circus. In Islam, it is a royal animal symbolizing strength and power. A person should not keep such an intelligent creature in a cage. Salah went on philosophizing for a while and then treated the cop to a kebab. Shocked, Stefan returned to the car without any information but with dinner. It turned out that Issa was the one who had stolen the lion cub from the circus. His buddies immediately suggested photographing it and posting it on social media. Issa left the animal in the basement and threw it a live chicken. Chris noticed a group of kids and ordered Guada to stop. The cops searched the boys. This time, Stefan pressured them along with the others until one of the boys' mothers showed up and drove the police out of the building entrance. Chris continued to lecture the rookie. Never apologize, they are always right. And his partner should already take off that stupid armband. Everyone here already knows they're cops. Soon, Chris saw Issa's photo with the lion cub. They knew this kid and immediately went to his house. Issa's mother reluctantly agreed to let only Guada inside. There were a lot of people living in the apartment, but Issa was not among them. At that moment, the boy was kicking a ball on the sports field. The policeman grabbed the kid, but a crowd of boys immediately rushed to free him. Guada pulled out a can of pepper spray, but during the scuffle accidentally sprayed it into his own face. Thanks to the confusion, Issa managed to escape. The boy ran as fast as he could. Guada could barely see, but still got behind the wheel. While Chris and Stefan tried to chase the young offender on foot, Issa was finally arrested. According to him, the lion cub had escaped from the basement, and no one knew where it was now. Soon, militant school children showed up. Chris fought them off with his baton. All of this was being observed from above by Buzz. The boys started throwing all sorts of trash at the cops. Disoriented Guada held the flashball gun in his hands. The rubber bullet struck Issa right in the face, and Buzz recorded it with the drone. Chris noticed the drone and tried to knock it down, but Buzz managed to fly away. Stefan checked the boy's pulse. Issa was still alive. He wanted to call an ambulance, but Chris would not allow it. He wanted to deal with the drone first, because if the video got out, they were all finished. Chris shoved the child into the patrol car. The kids ran to the mayor and told him that the cops had shot Issa in the head. The man only became concerned when he learned that the incident had been captured on camera. Chris went to the gangster boss, Sheila, and asked him to help find the drone's owner. Meanwhile, Stefan stayed with the boy in the car. He ignored Chris's order and led the boy to a pharmacy to at least get him some help. When he returned, he asked Chris to remove the handcuffs from the wounded boy. Once again, the cop refused to go to the hospital and handed Issa over to the gangsters. There were more important matters. They had learned who the drone belonged to. When Buzz saw the police, he pulled out the memory card and ran away. He climbed down from the roof and disappeared into the courtyards. Buzz ran to Salah and told him that the cops were hunting him. The boy was spotted by one of the mayor's men, who reported his location. The mayor came to Salah and demanded the video. With it, they would be able to put pressure on the police. The cops and Sheila with his men entered the establishment. The gangster also began to threaten Salah, but the preacher was not intimidated. Then Chris approached him and began to threaten that he could easily throw him in jail and shut down this diner. Chris grabbed Buzz. This time, even Guada did not support him. Salah agreed to speak only with the rookie. Stefan tried to explain that it was an accident and that no one wanted to harm Issa. But if this video spread, riots and unrest would surely break out. Everyone was tense, waiting for the results of the negotiations. Stefan guaranteed that the wounded boy would recover. The police obtained the recording and took Issa out of the gangster's hideout. Right then, they received a message that the lion cub had been spotted in a garden. All that was left was to return it to Zorro. The gypsy finally retrieved his Johnny. Issa only needed to apologize, but Zorro shoved the boy into a cage with an adult lion and tormented him for a long time. Stefan had to point his gun at the lion to make them release Issa from the cage. Zorro laughed, saying it was just a joke. The exhausted boy was finally taken home, but first Chris would take care of him. He began to intimidate the poor kid, forcing him to say to everyone that he had simply fallen and injured himself, and that it was all his own fault. Chris finally let the boy go and then clashed with Stefan. The rookie refused to hand over the memory card. He would keep it himself. Chris started insulting his partner, and Guada barely managed to calm his friend down. If the video came out, the entire French police force would declare him an enemy. Everyone went their separate ways, both the cops and the kids. Chris has 2 young daughters growing up. Guada lives with his mother. The man could not hold back his tears because of what he had done today. The mayor hoped everything had been settled and took his mentally disabled brother home. Issa's father threatened to throw him out of the house, and he kept his promise. In the evening, Stefan met with Guada. He knew how the trigger on the flashball launcher worked. It could not fire by accident. He could not understand how this happened. Guada justified himself by saying that his nerves had been at the limit. Maybe he simply snapped. Perhaps he shed tears not because of the boy, but because he almost got caught. Stefan said it had been the worst day of his life. Stefan handed the flash drive to Guada. He could do with it whatever he wanted. Stefan continued to work with the 2 of them. They drove into the ghetto, and the kids immediately sprayed them with water pistols. Issa was left disfigured for life. Together with his friends, he kept waiting for the police to return there. Stefan looked around and realized that the locals were looking at them strangely. The boys were pushing carts filled with firewood and flammable materials. Issa stepped out onto the road and fired a firework at the car. Furious, Chris chased after him with the flashball. The others also ran into the building. Stefan tried to call for backup, but the operator did not hear him. Suddenly, a crowd with covered faces stormed the place. Stefan managed to close the door and ran upstairs. Another group began rolling carts down the stairs directly at the police. The mayor was lured out of the building by being pelted with fireworks. The hooligans were throwing stones at the trio. Guada responded by spraying them with gas. After some time, Chris opened fire with the flashball. An older boy got behind the cops and started beating them with a stick, but he was quickly disarmed. The trio was smoked out with a flare. The mayor returned and began pushing the boys away. These teenagers were getting too bold. Isa approached the authority figure and silently punched him in the face. The others began beating him with batons to death. The cops were bombarded with stones and fireworks, and the passage was blocked with trash. Chris was struck on the head with a bottle. He could no longer resist. At that moment, Sheila drove up to the house to try to calm down the young Avengers, but they had already felt their strength, so they smashed his car and then set it on fire. While the crowd was distracted by Sheila, the cops managed to climb to the next floor. Guada used a stun grenade. Stefan began pounding on the nearest apartment door. It was where Buzz lived, and he did not open the door for the police. They were trapped. Isa appeared holding a Molotov cocktail. He was ready to finish off his enemies. Chris aimed his pistol at him and told him to leave. But Stefan realized he could not shoot the boy, so he lowered his weapon. It was the end for all of them. That is where the film ends.